name is Bronwen Weber, and I'm a baker, and I make cake, a lot of cakes. But today, I'm just gonna make one, a really cool one, a really old one. I have this complete fascination with really old recipes, really old ones. So today's recipe is probably from the turn of the century, the last century. So cool. So this recipe is Nancy Busby Griggs recipe. And I know probably not all of you know who she is. Well, I'll tell you. She is Brad Bush's great-great-grandmother. Okay, you got that? Great-great-grandma. That is your grandma's grandma. Whoa. She was born in 1872. Can you believe it? That's crazy. So she was making this cake before 1900. Cool. So anyway, if you look at the recipe, and you'll see it down below, you can see that it's really a 1, 2, 3, 4 cake. And I'm sure a lot of you know that a 1, 2, 3, 4 cake is a cup of butter, 2 cups of sugar, 3 cups of flour, 4 eggs, and then usually milk is added and any kind of flavoring, and you can change it up any way you want. And that was from before cookbooks really were around. So, I mean, my grandmother made me a 1, 2, 3, 4 cake. That's what she called it, a 1, 2, 3, 4 cake. She turned it into a Boston cream pie kind of thing with a little pudding and some chocolate fondant on top. But this one is an apple cake, a fresh apple cake. So this is kind of neat. And one thing that really interested me was the spices in it. You don't see any vanilla here. I mean, this is pre-vanilla. Cakes of that time period, you see a lot of nutmeg, and so there's some nutmeg in it. And there's also some allspice, which I thought was really intriguing. I only use allspice in one thing I make, and it's a French-Canadian torchware, which is a pork pie. So for it to be in an apple cake, so weird. Anyway, first step. Step 1, you gotta get all of your stuff together. You gotta make sure that you have everything, for one. So I have measured my spices, I have a ½ cup of milk, I'm about to measure my flour, I've got to separate 4 eggs, so I'm going to do that now. I have 2 white, 2 brown, doesn't matter. So you want to separate them. It's kind of interesting. I totally just messed up, Brad Bush. It's a good thing I have a lot of eggs, because I dropped that other one, but you don't have to see that part. Anyway, or this part. You know what? I got more eggs. It's fine. It's fine. I don't have it on my face, which is good. Okay, so you separate 4 eggs. That one on the counter, you know, that's fine. We're just going to leave it there and not panic. Here we go. I have 2 large eggs and 2 medium eggs, because the recipe calls for 4 eggs. Now, how do I know what size her eggs were? So we went with an average. So 4 yolks, 4 whites. There's lots of ways to do this. Everybody has their own way. People are like, well, that's a cool way. You can use it however you want. Just separate the darn eggs. Okay, and this one, ready, set, in the center. Okay, and then I need 1 more, and we're ready. So this is a creaming method cake. So we start with the fat, and then we add the sugar. We cream it up till it's really nice and fluffy. And the fat that's used here is shortening, which I think is kind of neat. Now, definitely today's shortening is different than the shortening from 1898 or whatever. But we're gonna go with shortening. I didn't go with butter. Sometimes people prefer to bake with butter, but I think it makes a much drier cake than using. My preferred method is for fat is half butter, half oil. That's my preference. But today we're using shortening because Nancy Griggs used shortening, so it must be right. Okay, so we're going to put in the mixer. It's like the first time I've ever done this. You know, this is a tiny one. This is crazy. enough. Scrape it one more time. Scrape the bowl, scrape the bowl. I haven't added the sugar, just the shortening. Gorgeous. 2 cups of sugar. Interesting to note, Granny Griggs' granddaughter also has a recipe in the family book for fresh apple cake, but she cut back the sugar. But today we're going with the original amount, Granny Griggs, original amount, right? Her granddaughter cut it down, but nope, we're going with full 2 cups. It's gonna be sweet. Scrape the bowl down. Make sure you got it all incorporated. My impatience wins, but this is a crucial part of the cake because you're incorporating air into this mixture, and this helps with making a light, fluffy cake. So then, when you're done, you're going to take your 4 egg yolks and you're going to mix them in, and then it's going to look horrid in there. Now, do you think that Granny Griggs had a beautiful coppery colored KitchenAid? No. But I'm sure she had a strapping young son who could beat the crap out of that shortening for her. That's what I like to think. It's a really pretty color now. Keep scraping the bowl. You don't want to get to the end of this and have big shortening lumps. Nasty. Okay. I should have previously measured my flour. Granny Griggs would have. So I'll show you how I do it. I'm sure Granny Griggs sifted all of her flour, but she didn't have like things to watch on Netflix, so she had extra time. I don't sift flour. People always freak out about that. So what I'm doing is I'm digging in here, and then I'm just kind of leveling off the cup measure like that. And then I'm putting it in the bowl. Now, most bakers will tell you that you want to measure by weight and not volume, but back then they didn't measure by weight. In fact, they didn't have cup measures until, gosh, I think it was 1800 when they started standardizing that. Pretty exciting. Anyway, so this is my cheating method of sifting, and I'm sure I'm going to let a lot of you down, but this is how I do it. A whisk. I'm aerating that flour. Well, I'm done. Now I'm going to add the rest of my dry ingredients to it. That is my 17-year-old Chihuahua in the background. Yeah, it's dinner time. So I've got baking soda, I've got baking salt, I've got baking soda, baking salt, baking salt. Baking soda, salt, baking powder, and then my spice mixture. So I use nutmeg, and I like to use the kind from the whole little dealy bob, and then grate it like this. To me it smells like Christmas, smells like eggnog. And then I've got cinnamon, allspice, and nutmeg. Pretty cool. Pretty neat mixture. And then I'm going to use my sifter and then just kind of mix that in. So We've got half a cup of milk, we've got our flour, and we've got our shortening, sugar, and eggs. And of course, we need our apples. So I have 3 apples here. I like Honeycrisp. Honeycrisp weren't even around back in those days, but I'm sure she would have approved. So I'm just gonna chop them up. I'm gonna leave the peels on them. So this seems like a lot of apples, I gotta say. But I'm gonna trust that woman. I mean, she knew a thing or two. And maybe her apples were big. Maybe they were small, but we'll see. We'll see. One thing that really, I think, makes me so interested in old recipes is I am a first-generation Canadian. My parents are both from Europe, and they immigrated when they were young teens. Anyway, I don't have a whole lot of family history. And then, of course, I immigrated here. So, I don't have a great-great-grandma's recipe. I have a great-grandma's book. And so I'm going to try to find something out of that book. It's all in German. And see if I can make something that she might have made. That's kind of interesting. Okay, so there's 3 apples. There's my shortening, sugar, and eggs. And now I'm going to alternate between dry and liquid. Should really switch to a paddle at this point. It smells so good. I bet Granny Griggs was popular. We're going to whip these up and fold it in, and that'll add an extra little bit of lift. This smells so good right now. I cannot wait to eat this cake. So I'm going to take this off, switch bowls. I got a lot of bowls. Whip up the egg white. That's the next step. And then fold them in. So here's my whites. I'll whip in there. This one's missing a couple times, but we won't mind. Alright, I just finished whipping these by hand. Alright, and now I'm going to fold them. And this is a really stiff batter. I wonder if the granddaughter added a bit more milk. I bet she did. seems a little bit stiff, but we'll try. I'm gonna trust her. So a little bit first. I should really put it in a bigger bowl. Wow. And then I've got 3 9-inch pans. 3 9-inch pans. This is really, whoa, whoa, whoa. This is lightening it up considerably. I have an Italian cream recipe where it has separated eggs like this. It's really nice and light. So you just want to fold it in. It's a good workout. I can't even imagine doing the whole thing by hand. Granny Griggs probably was a boxer in her spare time. Okay, and then one last addition. And then we'll put it in the pans and get it in the oven. Uh-oh. Uh-oh. Of course, at the bakery, I put my whole arm in there, and the bowl would be about that big. Feels funny to make one cake. Oh yeah. Okay. So there's a lot of ways to prepare pans. I have a piece of parchment in there. I buy them already that size, but you can just cut them in a circle. I usually use pan spread is what we call it, which is equal parts flour, oil, and shortening by weight, not volume, whipped up, and then you just smear that around. But you know, pan works too. We don't need to get all crazy. If it was a bigger cake, I might worry about it and do the pan spread, but all right. Now, divvy it up into 3. And then this one has a neat icing recipe too, which is pretty exciting. That is beautiful. I might make it into just 2. Yeah. 2 it is. Beautiful. Smells so good. All right, off to the oven. I'm gonna bake at 325. Did you know your ovens went to 325 and not just 350? That way I can be ensured a nice flat top. Some people use strips on the outside, but I don't need that. I don't need that. And then I'll just bake them till they're done. And not a minute less or a minute more. I won't go even check the oven until I can smell it. If it doesn't smell like beautiful apple cake, then it's not done. Don't even bother going over there. The way to tell if it's done is if you push on the top a little bit with your fingers and it bounces back, or when it kind of releases a little bit from the sides of the pan. You can poke it with a toothpick if you like to. It'll come out clean. Yeah, and definitely by smell. When it starts to smell heavenly, then you know it's time to go look at the oven. Yay! Now it's time for Granny Griggs filling. That's what she called it. It could be icing. We'll find out. I've never made it before. 2.5 cups of sugar, 1 cup of milk, and then you cook it to softball. I'm gonna get a spoon, stir that up a bit. I don't want to get any crystals on the side. I don't think it'll matter. It looks like a little like wet sand. Delicious. In the meantime, I got my pan heating up. I'm gonna toast a cup of nuts. She said 1 cup of nuts. I'm gonna use pecans because that's my favorite kind. And I like to toast them because they taste better. They just taste better. Dry pan, so you can smell them. Yay! So this will take a bit. I have 1 thermometer. It's Celsius. So we'll cook it to 235 Fahrenheit, 112 Fahrenheit, Celsius. Cool. You know, Granny Griggs had 14 kids. She got married when she was 16, and she had 14 kids in 20 years. Can you even believe she had time to bake this cake? I can't. I can't. So the nuts are toasted, so I'm going to turn the pan off. I just realized that my pan here is the same age as Granny Griggs. This is about 1880, this pan. Pretty cool. Pretty cool. So I poured the sugar milk mixture that was at softball. I let it cool a bit, and then I put it in here. And then I'm going to start the mixer. Let it cool down a little bit, and then I'm going to add 1/2 cup of butter. Looks delicious. Smells good. I'm going to let it go till it's super creamy. So now it's been whipping in there, and that is what you get. It has the beautiful consistency of fudge. That is gorgeous. I'm going to throw the nuts in, give it a couple twirls around, and then I'm going to fill the cake with it. Okay, so now this icing is nice and beautiful. And I'm going to just ice it like Granny Griggs would have. Don't forget to take the paper off. It's still nice and it's just come to room temperature. Man, it looks good. It smells so good. I can feel the sugar content. It's real sticky. So I'm just going to fill it, and then I'm going to put some on top, but I'm not going to do the sides. Gosh, it looks good. I'm glad I chose pecans, but I bet almonds would be good too. Yummy. Yum. I wonder how far off this is from hers. That's so neat. Or how many generations of bushes have eaten this cake? 5 for sure. Oh, it's so pretty. We're going to use all of it. It is like fudge. It has the consistency of fudge, of poured fondant, really. So you could probably heat this up and melt it over the top a bit if you want. I like the way it looks like this. And the next part's the best part. It's eating it.